Hey, I'm socially impaired, and today there's an event going on in the city in which I live. That's Iowa City. And it's supposed to be about the awareness of science. Now look, I am a big fan of science, and a big opponent of human suffering. So I'm very curious what these speakers will have to say at this event. I don't really want to make any predictions, but if I had it my way, I would want this to be more than just an awareness of science in general. I would want them to focus on very specific issues. As an example, a great number of people die every year in car wrecks. If self-driving cars can alleviate a great number of those car wrecks, preventing those people from dying, then what can we do to push that technology along and to try and make it more available, cheaper and easier for people to have? What about climate change? I'm tired of hearing that we just need to go greener and cleaner. I want very specific proposals and how to get them done. Now, there's something that really worries me about this event. It's taking place on Earth Day. It makes it seem more ceremonial. You know, let's just come here, talk a little bit about science, make people a little bit more aware, and then, see you next year and have nothing really get done. Look, when it comes to major problems that we face as a species, a little here and a little there doesn't make the difference. We need major, drastic changes, which means that we need very specific proposals and explanations on exactly why those proposals in particular will allow us to get to our end goal. Now, I am not hopeful about this, but I have never attended an event like this before. So, I'm going to go down there and see what this is all about. And hopefully I can show you a little bit about what this is about.
He is a professor of environmental and civil engineering, and he's also the co-director of the Center for Global and Regional Environmental Research, which as of now has been threatened to be cut. So we could really use your support, and Jerry can tell you all about it in his talk, which is titled When Science Gets Politicized. Very good.
Yes, it's true. I am a scientist. I brought my lab coat in case I needed to prove it. Goggles too. But I wanted to talk to you about science and the importance of the march today also. We have before us kind of a unique time. I would say that it's easy to be a little bit upset about the politicization of science. And science, and as we've heard today, science and the scientific method are meant to be an objective means to inform government policy, of which we don't have such a good policy right now. Without unfettered science, we get poor decisions and we get poor science. When science gets censored by EPA, we get bad policy that fails to protect human health and the environment. And the people lose. When science gets politicized and we end up with alternative facts, the people lose. When climate deniers are bought and paid to cherry-pick data and obfuscate the facts, we get fake news, and the people lose. When billionaires and tobacco companies pay deniers like the Heartland Institute to say that secondhand smoke does not cause cancer, even though the scientific facts are irrefutable, help me out here, the people lose. When moneyed interests in our big oil say that climate change is natural and we don't need to do anything about it, our children and our future generations that we heard today, the people lose. When President Trump says that climate change is a hoax, despite 97% of scientists reporting massive evidence to the contrary, what we get is more severe storms, higher temperatures, rising sea levels, and melting ice. And we, the people, lose. When the state of Iowa avoids any mention of man-made climate change and doesn't want to study sustainable agriculture, flooding, or future energy systems, the people lose. That's why we're here today. That's why we're marching, and we need your support. Lost on most people is that responding to climate change, it's not an onerous thing. It really is an opportunity. Renewable energy and energy efficiency is the engine for economic development in the future. It's going to create jobs for our young people, clean air, and a healthy environment for all of us. The people shouldn't lose.
All right, our next speaker is Dr. Terry Walls. She's Assistant Chief of Staff at the VA, the Veterans Health Administration, and a clinical professor of medicine at the University of Iowa Health and Clinics. She's the author of a popular book on multiple sclerosis, but you may know her best because of her son, Zach Walls, who spoke up for gay marriage rights at the Iowa State House a few years ago. Terry.
Wow, what a great sized group here. Thank you so much for coming out. Science really is a public good. And I'd say science saved my life. I'd had progressive multiple sclerosis, 7 years of going steadily downhill. And I knew that my basic science colleagues were figuring stuff out that would be very useful to treating MS, in that the basic science would be 10 to 20, maybe even 30 years ahead of clinical science. And that basic science lived out in PubMed.gov. So by basically going out and reading what my brothers and sisters were doing in their labs with Parkinson's, with Alzheimer's, with Huntington's disease, with Lou Gehrig's disease, and yes, MS, I began to slowly piece together some things that I could do using diet. A lot of kale, of course. Yes, hail to the kale. And stress reduction, exercise. I was able to create a protocol that not only stopped my decline, allowed me to restore my function. And then with the encouragement of my chief of medicine, Paul Rothman, write up a case report. And then again with his encouragement to write up a protocol and test this in others. But the key thing is, none of this could have happened without the basic science that was going on, without getting this in Medline, without getting this into PubMed, so it could be found by me and other scientists. Science is a public good, and I'm very, very concerned that in our present climate, science is being viewed as somehow untrustworthy, that it's not good, it's not useful. Science is being obscured and hidden and blocked in the EPA. And of course, this is not going to make America great again. We need our science to be critical, to be reviewed, to be available, to be out in PubMed so that the scientists, we can find it, critique it, build on it, and that you, the public, can also do your own searches on PubMed.gov for your questions, make your assessments, and implement the things that make sense to you. Science is a public good. It is under threat. We need to make sure that that science continues forward. Again, hail to the kale.
And our last speaker is Amy Charles. She's one of the co-organizers for this march, and I have to tell you guys, I could not have done this without her, so give her a huge round of applause. She's a graduate of the Iowa Writers Workshop, and she's the writer in the Department of Chemistry.
Hi, everybody. I gotta tell you, when we started putting this thing together about a week or so ago, we didn't know if anybody was going to show up. And it looks like some people did. Thank you all for coming out and supporting science and showing your support of science. I'm the last speaker, like Paige said, before we march. My name's Amy Charles. I'm not a scientist, I'm a writer. I came here 25 years ago for the Writers' Workshop. But, yeah. But then, as now, I thought that science was beautiful, and so now I'm a science writer, and I work in the Department of Chemistry. Since this is a city of literature, though, I'm going to read a poem that's being read out at the March for Science in D.C., and it's pretty short. It's by Jane Hirschfield, and it's called On the Fifth Day. Everybody got real quiet for the poetry. On the fifth day, the scientists who studied the rivers were forbidden to speak or to study the rivers. The scientists who studied the air were told not to speak of the air, and the ones who worked for the farmers were silenced, and the ones who worked for the bees. Someone from deep in the Badlands began posting facts. The facts were told not to speak and were taken away. The facts, surprised to be taken, were silent. Now it was only the rivers that spoke of the rivers, and only the wind that spoke of its bees, while the unpausing factual buds of the fruit trees continued to move towards their fruit. The silence spoke loudly of silence, and the rivers kept speaking of rivers, of boulders and air. In gravity, earless and tongueless, the untested rivers kept speaking. Bus drivers, shelf stockers, code writers, machinists, accountants, lab techs, cellists kept speaking. They spoke the fifth day of silence. That's the next one. The past president of Ireland read that out in a news conference yesterday, and that's how some presidents in some countries regard the importance of this kind of knowledge, the kind that science deals in. It's right for us to talk about poetry on the day of the March for Science. It's right to talk about the arts and humanities because without them, there would be no science. At one of the best high schools in the country, that's Bronx Science in New York, there's a giant glass mural in the lobby. It's about 60 feet long. And this is a science high school, so of course the figures on it are the heroes of science, Darwin and Marie Curie, and there's Newton with his prism and the rainbow stretching out over all of them. But bigger than Newton, bigger than the rest, towering over the rainbow is a figure of a giant with outstretched arms raised in benediction. And he represents the humanities. And the title of the mural, which is carved below it, is Humanities Protecting Biology, Physics, Chemistry. Protecting. As you're here today protecting science, because it's the humanities that tell us why we do science. Why this kind of knowledge, which is a very specific kind of knowledge, and a very specific way of going about getting it, is valuable and worthwhile. Why it's beautiful as well as useful to figure out how a flower works and what it is, what a cancer is, and how it works. In this country, that has been true since 1946, when Vannevar Bush and President Roosevelt went around to all the important humanities deans in the country, and they agreed that it was right for the American public to support science in a big way, to spend the money, educate an army of scientists, make us a scientific force, a light in the world. The humanities deans said this even though they were frightened that the scientists would take their best students, and sometimes they did. Science still needs you, you artists and historians and classicists and writers. Science needs you to understand it, to stand up for it, and to go on thinking about why we need it. Why it's a fine thing for a people to spend their time and money on. But think about it tomorrow, because right now the scientists want you to march. And then to stick around afterwards for the teaching and the open mic. So what do you think? You guys want to march? Okay, if you turn around, way down at the end by the Herky, we got people with their signs up, waving their hands. You want to follow them? We're going to go left down Clinton Street, up Jefferson to Gilbert, to Iowa, and then come back here. But if you follow them, you will not go wrong. Please be nice and stay on the sidewalks. Have a good march.
Oh, all right, everyone, we've got a chant. All right, and it's some inspiration from one of our speakers, Jerry. So, people lose with fake news. Science has the facts. All right, let's say it one time as a group before we march. Ready? People lose with fake news. Science has the facts. All right, so if you can just go and follow them. All right, let's start the march.
I can feel
That's right, that's Robinson's Indian normally, like with their family, they're always going. She's like 5 years younger than Lynn's Well, no, then she grades over 40. She always rolls into Lynn's category for a year. Kind of put her neck out there. You know?
Oh, it's chilly out there. Chilly out there.
Indeed. I still have my short hair. You gotta love it, you know? I mean, there's creativity.
Yes, and not blocking the street, you're all going to have to wait for the stop.
We went over to
That guy just wants to get out of there.
we stopped at all the red lights.
God damn it.
Come on, you're fine.
Causing a traffic jam.
But we wouldn't have traffic without science. That's true.